Fiat, Chrysler, Alfa Romeo, Genesis. From economy cars to luxury. Go to carpros.com today.
CARPROS.
Tomorrow's headlines before they go to print.
I've just been handed some great reporting.
The 11th Hour with Brian Williams. Weeknights at 11 on MSNBC.
I think we are in a situation of a national security crisis that is only going to get bigger. I think the Russians are running a strategic political warfare operation against the United States, and that we are at cyber war with them. Now, what appears to be happening is that they are running an operation to select or influence their preferred candidate to get into the White House. We are in danger. Our national intelligence and national security and the American democratic establishment of choosing a presidency is under attack right now, and we really need to take this seriously.
In case you missed the date on that clip, that was Malcolm Nance on this show almost exactly 1 year ago, predicting the Russiagate crisis that has engulfed the Trump administration. In the years since Malcolm made those remarks, evidence has mounted that Russia meddled in our election to help get Trump elected. Whether the Republican presidential campaign cooperated in that attack is a matter of ongoing investigation. And this week, the Wall Street Journal reported the strongest evidence yet of possible collusion, detailing how a GOP operative, the now deceased Peter W. Smith, launched a quest to obtain emails he believed were stolen from Hillary Clinton's private server, while implying that he was connected to Michael Flynn. Another Wall Street Journal story that broke overnight revealed that Smith also listed other senior members of Trump's campaign in a recruitment document, including Steve Bannon, Kellyanne Conway, and Sam Clovis, now a senior advisor at the Agriculture Department. The Journal writes that there is no indication in the document that Smith sought or received any coordination from those campaign officials. And joining me now is Malcolm Nance, the Russia forecaster. He's also the author of The Plot to Hack America. Naveed Jamali, former FBI double agent and author of How to Catch a Russian Spy. And Nayyera Haq, former State Department spokesperson and a former White House senior director. We're going to have to get you a book, Nayyera. So I have to go to you first, Malcolm, and I'm just going to let you say I told you so. I feel like we've been having the same conversation every week for a year, and now it literally is actually we've been having the same conversation for a year. If it was so evident to you as a national security professional that Russia was attempting to intervene in our election in order to steal it for one candidate, why was it not evident enough to our national security structure for them to stop that from happening?
Well, I think it was evident to the professionals inside the national security infrastructure at that time. The U.S. intelligence community was, and as we now know, was hair on fire. And the reason that I made that statement, you might recall we were at Independence Hall, was the previous week, all of these little indicators were coming up and bubbling up through the community that were showing that not only was Russia doing something, but they were handing it off to WikiLeaks. And, you know, a few days earlier, WikiLeaks said that they had all of the DNC documents. But we had been tracking the Russians' handling of those documents for almost 2 months. So it became very clear that there was this handoff from one agency to the next. But John Brennan was going around at that exact time, telling everyone within government over that period and that next 8 weeks that the United States was under attack, precisely as I said it. So, you know, it's not, you know, prophesizing the future. It's just sheer professional intelligence analysis as carried out by the professionals. But the consumers refuse to believe it.
Yeah, that's I think the important point. The consumers, particularly in the Trump campaign, who, Naveed, the interesting thing that's happened here, we've all had this discussion, and now I'm going back to, you know, you and I have had this. I feel like this is the conversation we keep on having, which is, at what point does the Trump campaign become aware and knowledgeable of what Russia is doing, or convinced it's happening, and then what do they do about it? Do they believe it? Do they believe it and then try to take advantage of it? This story, these two stories in the Wall Street Journal and another piece by a guy named Matt Tate in Lawfare. Let's go through first the Wall Street Journal story by Shane Harris. And it says that investigators have examined reports from intelligence agencies that describe Russian hackers discussing how to obtain emails from Mrs. Clinton's server and then transmit them to Mr. Flynn via an intermediary. And then let's go, this is clip one for my producers. Matt Tate, who is one of the unnamed sources in that story, then outs himself in Lawfare Blog, said, I'm one of the sources in this story. And he says that this gentleman, Mr. Smith, who is now dead, had not contacted him, and he was studying the email hack itself for what security breaches happened in it, what the email hack itself of the DNC kind of meant from an objective point of view, not partisan. And he said Smith had not contacted me about the DNC hack, but rather about his conviction that Clinton's private email server had been hacked, in his view, almost certainly both by the Russian government and likely by multiple other hackers too, and his desire to ensure that the fruits of those hacks were exposed prior to the election. He mentioned that he had been contacted by someone in the, quote, dark web who claimed to have a copy of emails from Secretary Clinton's private server, and he wanted me to help validate whether or not the emails were genuine. You have a theory about what all of this means. I'm going to let you tell us what that is, Naveed.
Sure. So, I think that I don't dispute the fact pattern. I had the opportunity to speak a little bit with Matt last night. I don't dispute the fact pattern. I think it's a very interesting revelation, and it perhaps adds context to this. Look, I think that if the Russians did in fact have Hillary Clinton's emails, then they probably would have released them using WikiLeaks. I mean, it seems like they had the perfect mechanism to do that. So there's another thing here. If we think about what did Russia want to do? Well, we know that they want to destabilize the United States. They want to delegitimize our election system and certainly harm Hillary Clinton, who they believed was going to be the president. So I think that the alternative here is perhaps this may have been a very clever dangle operation. And what that means, a dangle is what it implies. It's to evoke an imagery of sort of a bright lit lure in a dark ocean, and to sort of see what fishies come swimming up. So you put out there, hey, we have these 30,000 Hillary, these missing emails. Let's see who comes out here. And listen, any Republican operative who wants to get Trump into the White House is going to come looking. And what do they get? They get Peter Smith. Now, perhaps once he saw this, he brings it back to this, whether it's Kellyanne Conway or Michael Flynn or any of these other name droppers that were in the subsequent report. That gets to them, and maybe that gets to the president. And the president then comes out on national TV and says, Russia, if you're listening, release these emails. Now, the thing about that, Joy, that's so unbelievably damaging and so frightening is it shows you both, A, how good the Russians are at manipulating people, and B, it shows you how susceptible the man in the White House is to that manipulation.
And so Naira, the sort of the key to all of this is the conspiratorial mindset of both Donald Trump and Michael Flynn. These are people who already had a mindset that Hillary Clinton was just an uncaught criminal, and that whatever the Russians got from the DNC, somewhere in there was the criminal intent of Hillary Clinton hiding in it, and that if you could just get her 33,000 specifically emails, then you would catch her. That would be the smoking gun. So if the Russians got the DNC, if they got Podesta, surely they must have Hillary's too. I want to show you two pieces of video that put all this together. Let's first go to July 18th. This is the first day of the Republican National Convention. And this is Michael Flynn on stage talking about Hillary Clinton.
We do not need a reckless president who believes she is above the law. Lock her up. That's right. That's right. Lock her up. I'm going to tell you what. She put our nation's security at extremely high risk with her careless use of a private email server.
Okay, and now we fast forward 1 week later, and this is on July 26th, 1 week later. This is actually the same weekend that Malcolm and I had this conversation. And so, Naira, this is Donald Trump, and now the Democratic National Convention, I believe, has already started, and Donald Trump says a very specific thing to Russia. Take a listen.
Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails that are missing. I think you will probably be rewarded mightily by our press.
And not to get too conspiratorial, but he did that news conference in Miami, the same place that this Mr. Smith was, in Florida. Your thoughts?
This is what winning at all costs looks like, and it's about winning in a personal capacity. It's not about winning for the United States of America, and this is the problem when national security is set aside for the advantage of a particular individual who wants to win public office. This is a fundamental divide that we are seeing not just last year during the election season, but that Russia has been trying to manipulate and take advantage of with the Trump family for almost a decade, ever since the collapse of the Soviet Union, the sell-off of Russian assets. Business people around the world have seen this as an opportunity for them to make money. And Trump is essentially like a Russian oligarch. This is why you see lots of images of the Trump family in Russia building business interests, developing these networks and connections with Putin and his team. And unfortunately, with the election of the United States, they had to pay back, and that's what Putin and Russia have been playing on, is this Trump family personal interest in business, economics, for their personal gain, and not for the national security of the United States.
And I'm going to give you the last word on this, Malcolm, because you did predict it, so I'm going to give you the last word on it. Matt Tate said in Lawfare that when he tried to explain to Peter W. Smith that if he had received this, if he'd been contacted by the dark web with Clinton's personal emails, he should take it very seriously, that possibly it may have been part of a wider Russian campaign against the United States. Smith, however, didn't seem to care. If they were genuine, they would hurt Clinton's chances and therefore help Trump. Did he become an unwitting asset, in your view, due to his zeal to try to beat Hillary Clinton?
Absolutely, he's an unwitting asset. And as you recall in my book, I wrote about all these people were unwitting assets. You know, the Russians use two methodologies, like Naveed said. The dangle, where they put something before your eyes, but they also go direct from time to time. And I think Michael Flynn may have been the subject of a direct approach. You know, hey, go after Hillary Clinton. But can I just say one last thing? I know precisely when this information was injected into the bloodstream of American politics. Early 2016, there was a news report from Russia that was put out through Sputnik and another smaller agency, which was picked up by a right-wing blogger. And that story that Putin was having a debate within the halls of the Kremlin about releasing Hillary Clinton's 33,000 emails got repeated by Judge Napolitano on Fox News in April. And it disappeared, but didn't come back up until Trump's statement in July. It was festering during all that time, and these people didn't care. But they knew, they would had to have known that information would be coming from the Russians, and that informed Trump and all the people who had conversations with them to make that statement about Russia, if you're listening, release Hillary Clinton's emails. They don't care. Win at all costs.
It makes so much more sense with this piece of the puzzle, that you don't have to believe that Donald Trump and his team knew that the Russians were going into the DNC. They don't even have to be involved at that point. They just have to believe in their minds that they also got her emails. That's all they need. Right. They're conspiracy theorists. They want those emails because they think that's how they're going to beat her. It makes a lot more sense, for sure. Malcolm and Naveed, tell me the winning lotto numbers when you get off the air, because since you guys are able to do such great predictions, now you're a hack, we're getting you a book, because we want everyone to have a book. Thank you, guys. And coming up, Trump's attack on my MSNBC colleagues could put him in even more legal trouble. That's next.
Tough on the administration.
Why would he do something so catastrophic in terms of our security?
Love for the Constitution.
We can thank the Founding Fathers for their wisdom.
Tough on secrecy.
There continues to be a whole lot of smoke.
Love for democracy.
So far, it is us as American citizens, it is us in the press who are connecting the dots on this story.
Tough love. Administered nightly, weeknights 7 to 11.